Let me introduce Dr. Courtney Howard, MD, President of the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment.
So we're going to quickly talk about what are the health effects of climate change, talk a little bit about public health implications, and then we'll talk about key elements of a healthy response to climate change. Ice melt is what's happening up here. Immediate and direct risks are things that we see in the news right now. You know, we hear about heat waves, we hear about droughts, we hear about wildfires leading to asthma exacerbation storms. They cause extreme precipitation that can cause polluted water to go into drinking water supplies and pollute them. Trauma, loss of house and home, immediate injury, deaths. Keep going. Increasing temperatures lead to increasing ground level ozone, which causes breathing problems for people. We're having longer, more severe pollen seasons. Different kinds of changes in vector disease are being seen. Most of this, as you know, is being driven by increasing CO2 levels, which cause problems because it makes for acidic oceans. And all of the weird weather in general makes for much more difficult to predict precipitation and heat, which makes crop problems. And so that's a problem because even now, 50% of pediatric deaths around the world are associated with undernutrition. So you can imagine that if your kid didn't have anything to eat, you do almost anything to find them food. That means you might go somewhere else. They might not like that you came. So population displacement and conflict are two likely consequences of climate change. So this is sort of the cycle of badness. Unfortunately, what that means is that the possibility of systemic and economic collapse within the lifetime of today's children is very much a possibility. And so where we are right now is at a decision point. You know, do we change what we need to change? The thing about creating change is deciding what you want to change and making it the right size for the team and the resources that you've got. Creating an evidence-based target. So taking that evidence that is generated by either locally or by, the Lancet, being like, okay, this is an evidence-based change we can make. This is a policy window where I think that the politician might be interested in this, or the hospital administrator, or your husband, like maybe he is ready now to eat less hamburgers, right? Your target can be of many, many different sort of levels of complexity. And then figuring out what story you're going to tell to help create that change. And then you'll find you get a little win, like my friend who got a call from the Prime Minister, and then people get excited about wins. And so then your team is going to grow, your resources are going to grow, and you're going to be able to take on ever greater targets. We know that the health argument and arguments made by people who are seen to be trusted messengers, who are basically everybody who's not a politician, have changed the world before, and they're what is going to change the world now. We've known what we need to do for a long time, and it's not really been the evidence that's lacking. It's been the courage, because it takes courage to stand up and be that lonely voice. And sometimes you have to be persistent. And something that I really draw a lot of hope from is young people. And not only hope, but inspiration. And in fact, I've changed my ways of doing things. So be ambitious. Just giver. Pretend you don't know that something is impossible. Pretend it hasn't been tried before, because you know what? The world is changing a lot, and it probably isn't impossible now anyway. And just recall that this is really about emotion. We pick our targets based on evidence, but we need to invoke people's emotions in order to get them to change. And if you have an opportunity to sit at a table, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're a minority, again, this is not the time to be a bashful human. This is the time to say yes, because decisions change when women are at tables, and decisions change when there's a greater diversity around the table. We get mad that science doesn't make it into policy, but if we're not running for office, we're not going to have science and policy because there's no scientists around the table. Coming together to talk about this takes you immediately from that lonely place of being worried to a place of community where you can share. And then that is naturally the start, solutions finding. So, each one of those little wins is something that makes you realize that, yes, you can make a difference. And it inspires not only you, but other people around you And it starts this positive feedback cycle of inspiration that is where we need to go. So this may feel like just a start, but it is a really, really meaningful beginning.